Lewis in the Black Horse Pub. You must hear my words of wisdom. It is Monday again, and cloudy skies, dull, I suppose, but surprisingly cold. And for those of you who like such things, it is going to reach 11 today. No rain that we can see, and a light cloud and a moderate breeze with some sun bursting through from about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So there you are. Not a bad Monday. Not a bad Monday, not a good Monday. You can see to my right, outside the Black Horse, you can see that it's fairly busy this morning. People scurrying to work, even though it's Easter week. And whenever there's a long weekend in sight, most people take the whole week off. But you can see school children scurrying along, ready to get in time for classes. Generally speaking, not a bad morning, not a bad day. However, there are a few worrying scenes on the international stage, and we'll bring you those in just a minute or two. Just to say that we still had one or two blips last week, but we got much better, and I hope that we'll be even better this week. And as you can see, we got one or two other little extra features to try and tart us up. That's outside the Black Horse, but it's a very difficult to get away from history in Lewis, and that the camera is actually pointed at a plot of land where a windmill stood, and during the war of the Battle of Lewis, one of the king's men, a prince whose name just escapes me, and I can't quite read the plaque from here, hid in that mill from the forces led by Simon de Montfort. So there you are. It's a little bit of history. Nothing much to gaze at, I suppose, but the fact that it all happened right there gives you a sense of being a part of it. And I don't think the Black Horse was opposite at that time. The Black Horse is an 1800 pub, long enough ago. Let's see, 18, 19, 20, over 200 years old. And that's what I'm approaching, I think. But I wasn't here when the Black Horse was built. It came before me, just a little bit before me. Anyway, welcome to Mirador Television, and this Monday, eventually at 9 o'clock, I shall be joined, hopefully, by the lovely Susie for a little chat, and then at 10, in the plans, Harry Addison, who's in Normandy, and Philip Meredith, who is here, is one of our regulars. In fact, more than a regular, really. I mean, he's the backbone of Mirador now, and does many things that you don't see that contribute to us being able to put this this service on the air. And there are more and more articles being written and more concern being expressed that small scale media is disappearing. Now, people say, yeah, well, they're talking about newspapers. And indeed, mostly they are. And I doubt the newspapers are going to come back in the way that they did locally for one very good reason. And that reason is that people don't read anymore. They tend to read online if they read at all. It is very sad. Dr. Maybe, who comes on a Wednesday and a Friday, he chatted about this last week. The sad thing is that libraries are closing. We are not encouraging youngsters to read, and yet there is a whole world there of pictures and so on, where you can actually sit and contemplate. Yes, you say that they can do that on the phone. Well, first of all, it's not. There's nobody there to point you in the right direction. Nobody to point you how to read the classics. Nobody to point you how to find a particular book. Libraries created an atmosphere for reading, and they are still very popular. And yet, councils look at them and say, "Right, okay, we'll just close them down." Oh, thanks, Ada. Ada just brought me the the Times, and we'll take a quick look at the front page of the Times pretty soon. But generally speaking, libraries are considered to be dispensable. And I think that is an awful decision. I mean, it stems from the top. It stems from Westminster. But it is eagerly picked up by county, district, and town councils. And it shouldn't be. It should be the reverse. We should see if it's a question of budget, what else we can do without. And I think that there's some things that we could do without. Eco-friendly office buildings, for instance, that's fine. But it has no permanent or lasting contribution. Not in the sense that we're educating our youngsters. And I take that back. Anything that's eco-friendly, of course, is welcomed. But perhaps as an addition, as an addendum, not as a prime move. Not until some of the other prime moves have been satisfied. And one, most certainly, is libraries. Now, how do we get onto that? Can't remember. But nonetheless, I think it's something to do with the yeah, I can't remember. I really can't remember. Never mind. Let's do what we have to do, what we need to do, and that is look at the front pages of the papers, because there is a lot to concern us. There is a lot to concern us. And the newspaper headlines generally fall into China hack attack and UK nuclear defense boost, both stories are of considerable concern. But the Sun is, well, the Sun is, although it shows a picture of the Princess of Wales and how it says she's been very brave with her approach to handling cancer. And apparently the good news is that they've caught it early enough that it's not going to be fatal. The Sun, for the third day running, features a photo of Catherine taken from her video message. And in its main story, the paper reports that the British government on Monday will officially, right now it's getting down to what its main headline is: China hack attack on the UK, will officially blame China for a cyber attack in 2021, which reportedly saw it access the personal details of 40 million British voters. The paper suggests some 43 individuals, including MPs and peers, were also targeted. The Daily Telegraph: China and Russia are behind slurs on the princess. It says the Daily Telegraph reports that China, Russia, and Iran have been fueling disinformation about Catherine as part of efforts to destabilize the UK. That's according to people close to government. The paper says there are fears in government that hostile nations are behind the spread of wild conspiracy theories and online rumors surrounding her health. Well, I can tell you this, that we only use what we think is verifiable. We don't go looking for spurious rumors. So you more or less can trust what you hear and see on Mirador, which is all the more reason for you tapping into us, even though we're tiny in comparison to the giants. I say more or less because in this complex world of cyber information, computer attacks, etc., is nobody knows exactly. We're almost living in an Alice in Wonderland, and with no white rabbit. I am a little cautious. The Financial Times: the United States and Japan plan a security pact upgrade to resist China. Right. Okay. What's that? China is also the focus in the Financial Times, which leads with reports the United States and Japan are planning to bolster their security alliance in a bid to counter what they view as a growing threat from Beijing. A striking image of Moscow's destroyed Crocus City Hall following Friday's attack also features prominently. The big problem there. The big problem there is that President Putin has sort of uttered threats, whereas the cyber attacks so far have been covert. In other words, nobody's admitting to them. President Putin has sort of said, take us on at your risk. And he's not averse to using nuclear weapons. The Guardian: suspects appear in court accused of Moscow attack that left 137 dead. Okay, so this is the issue in Russia. The attack is the main story in The Guardian, which carries court photos of two of the suspects, Diezjon Mirziyoyev and Saidakrami Muradali. And a last name, Rakabalizoda. They're very badly pronounced, as you can read them in the paper, have been charged of committing an act of terrorism. The paper says at least 137 people were killed after gunmen opened fire at the concert venue on the outskirts of Russia's capital. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility. Russian officials have claimed, without any evidence at all, that there is Ukraine involvement. Kiev, in other words, the Ukrainians, have denied that. The UK's nuclear defense boost to protect against Putin. This backs up what I have just said. The I newspaper reports that the UK is lining up a £760 million package to modernize the country's nuclear deterrent in what it describes as a defense boost to guard against the threat coming from Russian President Vladimir Putin. In other words, our government is taking him very seriously, let alone me. Incidentally, I have spent time in Russia. So if you think that I'm rubbing it on without any sort of experience at all, no, I've been there. I've done that. The Daily Mail. There is rather a large banner, the inside story of how crisis has brought the King and Kate closer than ever before, by Robert Hardman, their royal specialist. And it is what the headline is the royals will come back stronger. The Daily Mail reports that royal insiders believe the family will come back stronger following the cancer diagnosis of both King Charles III and his daughter-in-law, both pictured on the front page. Sources cited by the paper say things may look different for a while, but the institution will be no less effective. And there is reports elsewhere that Kate, when she visited Charles, had long conversations with him, which were in the fondest possible terms, and that she and he formed a stronger relationship. You can understand that with all the comings and goings and the things that they have to do, their duties, is the royal family probably don't talk to one another any much more than we would if we were living next door. Of course, like ships that pass in the night, and I would imagine. I don't know about you. Well, no, I shouldn't say I don't know about you, but I'm well on in years, and I've got Parkinson's. That after I put in 6 to 8 hours each day, in the evening, all I really want to do is to sleep, and yet I'm expected to do all sorts of administration, and that is personal stuff as well as for the business side of the TV. And I'm happy to say I think that we found at long last a gentleman that I've known for many years who is as solid as a rock, who has agreed to take over the administrative duties of Mirador. So we're negotiating this coming week. And I hope that that's true, because it's not that I want to sleep. It's that there are so many things to be done. I don't have enough time in the day. So I do understand the royal family may not talk to one another. You can see Ada in the background there, busy away, looking after us as usual. Yes. The Daily Express. King's Easter message of unity and hope to the nation. Also in the royal family news, The Daily Express, which is always establishment supporting, is previewing the King's upcoming Easter message. The paper describes it as one of unity and hope. The Daily Mirror, its banner, William in awe of Kate's courage. See page 4 and 5. A battle for the boozer. Pubs call time at 8 p.m. A third of landlords forced to close early due to costs and lack of custom. Well, now, it's interesting because our chief of staff, Declan, who also runs this pub, quite often, he and I have little chats. Just nice little chats, because he's a very nice bloke to talk to. And he was telling me that it looks as if he hasn't had to do it yet. It looks as if he's going to have to boost his prices considerably. And in doing so, of course, is the number of people that will cease to come to the pub. They will put it into their budget instead of going to the pub twice in a week, they'll go once in a week. If they go once in a week, they won't go at all. They'll go down to well, nowadays it's not just the off license; it's to a number of stores, local stores, and get something to drink inside. So I understand the problems that landlords are facing. The only thing I would say is that Declan runs such a good pub here at the Black Horse, and there are so many loyal people, and so many people come because it's an enjoyable pub to come to. Is that I doubt if he will be forced to close. But by the same token, running a pub is not easy, and I plan to do a little program sometime in the coming year. See, where are we? Yes, we're just in the end of the first quarter. About how Declan runs this pub, because it is not an easy profession, believe me. And you have to be here at all times of day and night to keep things going. So I don't think that Declan is going to start to close at 8 o'clock. I don't think he'll lose a great deal of his customers, because he's created a loyal band of people who come here. But they are going to moan and groan about any price increase. I am sure of that. The Metro, £14 billion United Dom. United Kind Dom. That's the Metro. What it's done is it's put on its headline. Instead of Kingdom, it's got Kind and Dom, and it's got Kind in the colours of the Union Jack. But what it's all about is the better side of everybody. Because the Metro reports that people in the UK gave a record £13.98 billion to charity last year, despite the rising cost of living. Playfully describing the UK as the United Kingdom, Kind Dom, in its headline, the paper adds that some of the country's poorest areas are amongst the most generous with their donations. Well, it's good to know that behind the headlines, there is still kindness, goodness, and beneficence. The only caveat I have is that some of the charities have got to get their act together. They cannot behave like big corporations. They cannot pay their CEOs extortionate amounts of money. They must curb that side of things if they expect people to keep on putting in money and them staying whiter than white, scandal free. The Times. Beijing blames for malign cyber attack on election watchdog. But that's not the main headline. Oh, thank you, darling. Ada has just brought me another cup of coffee. Oh, she looks after me, that lady. She really does. I'm going to take a sip of it if you don't mind. As I've said to you many a time, my mouth is starting to get dry. As most of you know that I've said, it dries up because of my Parkinson's. But there are ways around. When you've got Parkinson's, there are ways around things. Not really. You can't get rid of the disease. It's there, and it gets worse. But you can actually make it bearable. The Russell Group gets most of its fees from overseas. Now, the Times reports that the Russell Group of the UK's leading universities is becoming increasingly reliant on overseas fees. Dozens of institutions, including Oxford and Cambridge, now get most of their cash from foreign students. I suppose that this is something that needs to be addressed. If, in fact, British students, UK students, are being denied places because of this, then we need to address it. This story does not, in its headline anyway, in its front page, tell us whether that's the case. But we must worry about it. Oh, let's see what the Star has in store, because we always get our little giggle from the Daily Star. The Daily Star, we're tops for treasure. The Daily Star joins the gold rush, a hunt for £4 billion in sunken ship. Alongside a picture of a stereotypical pirate on its front page, the Daily Star says it has joined the treasure hunters searching for El Dorado of the seas, a shipwreck off the coast of Cornwall, which is said to contain billions of pounds worth of gold. Whoopee! Whoopee! It's been there for yonks. Let's quickly recap the news. It was half an hour ago when we started. Pictures of two of the suspects accused of killing 137 people in an attack on a concert near Moscow make the front page of The Guardian. The paper says Russia's investigative committee released a video yesterday showing the men being led blindfolded into its headquarters. The Daily Mail says footage was also circulating of the suspects being tortured by what it calls their sadistic captors. That's according to the Daily Telegraph, where one appears to have been hooked to electric wires. The Sun is among those to report that Britain will officially blame China for a cyber attack in 2021. The hackers targeted the Electoral Commission, accessing the personal details of 40 million people in the UK. There are also fears for the NHS because government sources have told The Sun that the health service uses the same software that was accessed. That is worrying. According to the Times, the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, will tell MPs that as a result of the findings, the UK will look at sanctioning Chinese officials implicated in human rights abuses in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. China also makes the front page of the Daily Telegraph because Whitehall sources believe Beijing, Russia, and Iran are fueling disinformation about Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Senior government figures fear the countries are behind the spread of wild conspiracy theories about her health. Part of the modules let's see. part of the modus operandi, of hostile states is to destabilize things, a government source is quoted as saying. The Daily Express reports that King Charles III will rally the nation with a powerful message this week. The paper says he will seek to provide reassurance to people after Catherine publicly announced she was undergoing chemotherapy for cancer on Friday. The king, who also has cancer, is, according to the Daily Mail, so optimistic about his own treatment. Okay, bye. Bye, Ada. Right, I'm left on my own for a little while. It is the king, who also has cancer, is, according to the Daily Mail, so optimistic about his own treatment, he has expressed a hope to attend Royal Ascot this summer. And the Daily Mirror leads on what he calls the battle for the boozer. With some pubs now closing at 8 o'clock due to costs and a lack of customers, Greg Kirk, the landlord of the Hawk in East London, says he does not open at all on Mondays and Tuesdays. The Campaign for Real Ale has described the revelations in the Mirror as a harsh wake-up call for the government. Ministers say measures support hospitality were recently extended, including a 75% discount on business rates. Right. Okay, who's selling porkies? Or perhaps they're all telling the truth, but it makes a big difference as to the interpretation. I would say that here in Lewes we have at least one pub, the Pelham Arms, doesn't open on Monday and Tuesday. But as far as I'm aware, most of the others do, all opening at noon, not at 10 o'clock in the morning, which I think their licenses allow them to do. The only exception to that I'm aware is the Brewers, which opens on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock and offers breakfast. And I suppose that Saturday is the day that people come to town for market. Well, that's a look at the papers, the front pages of the news. Let's take a look at the weather again. 11 degrees it's going to reach this morning, and it started cool. It started at 7 degrees. It's let's see, 8 degrees right now, according to the pundits. Going to stay at 8 for the rest of the morning until 10 o'clock, when it'll only go up by 1 degree. And it's due to get a little bit warmer at 2 o'clock this afternoon, because a bit of sun will peek through. For the moment, we've got cloud and a moderate breeze. I came in on my mobile scooter, the Red Devil, this morning, and I must say that it was not warm. Okie dokie. Now, I'm going to see if I can get the lovely Susie. And let's see. There we go. The invitation is gone. Let's just end this little session with a visit down to the park, just for a minute. And guess who's here? It's all right, my dear. You can have a sip of your coffee.
Sneaky drink.
Help us all wake up. How are you this morning?
Well, I am very well in myself, thank you, Keith. I
That's-
think it's everybody around me, really.
Did you have a good weekend?
I had a lovely weekend. Unfortunately, I had problems with lodger number 2, which involved the police. So it's all
dear.
fun and games.
Yeah.
But I did go rowing on Saturday, and then I spent the day down in Bexhill with one of my best friend of 27 years.
Oh, that's good. What did you do down at Bexhill? You didn't go onto the beach.
Yeah, well, Terry lives down there, so we go down for a nice walk along the seafront, and I go to a lovely shop down there on the seafront, and then we sat, excuse me, we sat and had a couple of drinks, watching the sun, sitting in the sun and watching the waves. So it was, yeah, very beautiful and therapeutic.
It's nice when you've got time to ruminate along with nature, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important. As you say, I've been listening to you. Such a lot going on in the world, and in our own personal lives as well. That we actually need to step away. Well, I have to step away from all of it to find me again. And we can very easily get lost, in this whatever's going on in the world right now, and other people's problems.
Yeah, there is a lot is going through the newspapers this morning. Is there are at least 4 separate stories of national or international interest.
Yeah.
I suppose the one that bothers me the most is the cyber attacks from China. How do you react to that?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, we're all just sitting, we're really waiting for something to happen. We just don't know what it is going to be, when it's going to be, and with with all this, the internet and hackers and the dark web, how on earth do we know what is actually going on behind the scenes? We just can't. We just don't know.
Much uncertainty, isn't there?
Yeah, and okay, they've done the cyber attack, but what will that culminate in? What's going to that's what's the worrying bit. It's like, what does that mean for us?
Yeah, I don't think that any of us quite know what it means. What we have to rely upon is that somebody isn't stupid enough to press the button.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Those are the worrying stories out of Moscow.
And that's why I just have to get on each day and enjoy what I have in my day, my life. Because I can't predict the future. The past has already happened, so I just need to live for each day that I've got and enjoy the people around me, and live as much as I can live, because I just don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I must confess is that the conspiracy theorists sometimes have a certain credibility when you look at what's happening, because what we know and what becomes overt is probably like an iceberg. What we see is just an eighth of what really is happening beneath the waves.
If that, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then bits and pieces come out from time to time, and think, "Oh my God!" But the people sitting sort of deciphering this thing, I mean, it makes you wonder what sort of stress that they're under. Is with daily reports of nasty things coming in from around the world.
And I know when I had my Romanian guy living with me, he said that when he was in Romania and the war on Ukraine was starting, they didn't see anything of that on the news. The whole news was completely like Russia. They didn't see anything that was happening. So who knows what is being withheld from us? What is the truth? What's smoke and mirrors? What are we being diverted? We're being diverted from the main story by other sub stories, and we tend to get blindsided, I think, by the press, because the press will plug something so much that you actually forget to look at the things going on in the background.
for you to look at the sunset.
Sorry, say that again. I missed it.
Just as well, you have time to look at the sunset.
Yeah, I have to make time to take pleasure in life because
to
there's still
offset.
so many beautiful things around us, and I don't want to be diverted from that.
Now, I'm just going to take a moment because we had a little blip there, and we had a little blip the other day, which I ignored, and it turned out to be a major blip, which we didn't know. We didn't know it happened. So
sounds like you're describing the cyber attack, Keith.
Sorry.
It sounds like you're describing the cyber attack. There's a little
yes.
blip.
Well, actually, I doubt if. I did phone Beijing and asked them if we were on the list, and they said they could find us. But I mean, then they would, wouldn't they?
You could be, may not be. Who knows?
Right, on to nicer things. What's happening in your week this week?
Yeah, I haven't even thought about it. So much happened last week. I'm still trying to catch up. I went to I'll start on the weekend. I went to a 90th birthday on Saturday for one of my clients, which was lovely. The family really embraced me. Today I'm going to go and visit with one of my friends, a lady we looked after who was 103. And she was the lady that was in the French Resistance. So we're going to go and visit her in her care home in Crowborough. Got not a lot on this week. Then I'm seeing you on Wednesday and Friday.
Nice.
So yes, a pretty quiet week this week, but I've got various domestic issues to sort out.
Yes. Well, perhaps you could spend a bit more time with me on Wednesday or Friday.
Yeah.
We've been like ships that pass in the night. I'm
Yes,
aware of
definitely.
you've been because I'm so well looked after in terms of where I live, but I haven't had a chance to chat to you in the flesh, as it were.
No, because last week was quite full on with all the lodger problems, so that's why I was like having to zoom back and
But you know,
I won't be taking lodgers in again.
I had a friend, Heather, who lived on South Street. She lived to 98. But I suppose we got to know her when she was about 83 or 84, just about the age that I am now. And she used to crash land. When she went sat down on the settee, she would just let her body fall. And I understand that now because I do the same thing. And she used to say, my mind tells me I can do all sorts of things. My body will not follow suit.
The body says no.
That's right. The body says no. So all those things that she told me sort of 20 years ago, I began to understand what the hell she meant. Doesn't stop me drinking.
No, I'm going to say I fall onto my sofa for different reasons.
Now, tell us, because you spend a lot of time with older people, and how much do you enjoy chatting to them?
I love chatting to all my older clients. They've got so much to tell me, so much history. And in the absence of having parents of my own, they sort of fill a role for me as well. And I much prefer to talk to older people who've just seen so much in their lives. And I think that they're dismissed by the younger people. And I actually find, I don't know how I describe younger these days, but I find a lot of people, they've got nothing to talk about other than themselves. And after a little while, that can get a little bit dull. And I'd have to have proper conversations about proper subjects and intelligence. And I just, I'm seeing Aisa today, and just to think that she was in the French Resistance and she married a parachutist that she rescued. And I just think, wow, that tops anything in my life.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. I think really, she's a lady you chat to still.
Yes, yeah, and she's the care home that she's in. The carers in there say she's the most active one of everybody in there.
Mm.
So, Yeah, she's lovely. She still has that, the French accent, like hello, hello.
I think we should get you to chat to her and record her on your phone, because I think that is it's a fascinating love story, one that lifts the heart, as it were. And I think that we should actually then put together just a little 5 to 10 minute program on this lady and how she married the man that she saved,
Yeah.
I think I recall something from something that Philip said, because he chatted to you, is that there was some resistance because of the difference in social status.
Sorry, say the question again. Sorry, Keith.
Her family questioned whether she should marry him because of the difference in social status. He was a parachutist, and she
Oh
was.
no, not.
Yeah, go on.
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't because she's got dementia as well. Sometimes getting the full story is difficult, but I don't think so. She's had a very, very happy marriage, and she still, she very much loved her husband. And
Yes.
talked
I wasn't suggesting that she
him.
didn't, but
no, no, yeah, but it's lovely that story's still going on. And I think she actually was on the BBC News because of her age. So I'll have to see if I can find out the interview that was on they came down to film it in Crowborough.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that some of I think the members of the church. I know there was another program or a recording of her life that was taken before it gets lost.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. There are some stories like that fly around that are told, and then they're only told once, and they get lost. Whereas the stories that we keep on hearing about is we would sooner forget, and much rather hear these nice romantic stories, or at least interesting stories from the adventures of people. Because 9 times out of 10, it is the most unlikely people that have done the sort of most interesting things. I mean, there's several times that I sat chatting to people who, on the surface just seemed very ordinary. I mean, one, I noticed the other day, as I was going to say, as I walked down Lewes High Street, I can't walk anymore. So as I scooted down Lewes High Street, there was a very fancy dress shop, fashion shop, called, I think it was called Capaccio or something of the sort. Now it was sold a couple of years or so ago, but the people that owned it before was named Burton. A man called Tony Burton. And Tony, 10 or 15 years ago, was a well-known character around Lewes. And I got to know him quite well. And he was a curmudgeon. And that's where I learned to be a curmudgeon from, because I am a curmudgeon from time to time. But he was a real curmudgeon and would chunder away. But Tony spent a lot of time with Chubby Broccoli, who, does the name ring a bell? Made most of the James Bond movies.
Oh.
But also,
oh yes, of course, yes, it does now. Yes.
Yes. But also, but I just before I came to Lewes, is he had the tenancy of the Crown Inn, and because he knew all these famous people, he had a grand piano installed in the main lounge, and brought down well-known people who would sing and dance and perform in the lounge of the Star Inn, and that was as recently as sort of 1970s, 1980s, and now it's flats, as best I can tell, and a very historic inn. And that's the sort of erosion of things in our lives. So talking to people who, I knew him as a curmudgeon. Mind you, I like curmudgeons, so that's why I spent a lot of time with him. Is you don't know what the background is.
No. I love the word curmudgeon. And I like to find the source of where that comes from. And I don't know the source of that word. So I should have to
look it up, because I don't know. I mean, it is used about me so many times, and I've never bothered to find it. I know what it means, but I don't know where it came from.
There's always a derivative, isn't there? And I love to find when suddenly think, where does that actually come from? And so I should look at that up today, you curmudgeon.
Yes, it is. I can remember Tony sitting in the Lewis Arms and having some lunch, and he wanted Bubble and Squeak, and he got his Bubble and Squeak all right, but then he complained bitterly throughout eating it that it was not made with lard. If it wasn't made with lard, then it wasn't proper Bubble and Squeak.
Totally agree. I can only have Bubble and Squeak with lard, so yes, absolutely on that way.
Then you're going to have to make me some Bubble and Squeak with lard, because I love Bubble and Squeak. I really do.
I love it too.
Yeah,
but definitely lard gives the flavour. But I don't know that it's used a lot in the south. I mean, I'm a northerner, so lard was, a lot of things were cooked in lard up north, and we have dripping, toast and dripping.
Dripping. Oh yes, is during the war. I can vaguely remember my grandmother used to make sandwiches with dripping because there wasn't, it's very difficult to get hold of anything else.
And it's delicious. Yes. I will make you Bubble and Squeak with lard then.
Oh, thank you.
I love it.
The other thing that you know what I'm like is that it seems to trigger my memory, and one of the. I actually claim it is the best book ever written, and that is Wind in the Willows. And in it, there's the police.
At least not coming for you.
Well, I don't know. You see, I shrink every time it goes past. Is in it? There is a character, and Tony. Sorry, not Tony. Richard and Philip have accused me of driving my scooter like Toad.
Toad and Toad Hall.
Toad and Toad Hall, who drove his, and he's thrown into jail because of the way that he drives. and on the Monday morning, the jailer's daughter comes in with Bubble and Squeak, and he says he describes in it as. And the smell of cabbage wafted on the air, as the smell of cabbage is wont to do.
Beautiful. Oh, I have to reread that. Well, I use sprouts. I don't use cabbage.
Well, it's the same thing, I think. I mean, sprouts are really baby cabbages, aren't they?
Sort of, with a little different flavour. But I prefer the flavours.
Yes. No, I'm a sprout man. I'm a sprout man. Give me a sprout.
I love sprouts. I think if you don't know how to cook sprouts properly, then I can understand why people don't like them. But they'll be all watery. But love sprouts.
Yeah. Now that leads me to a question: is what did you cook for your Sunday lunch this Sunday?
Well, I was very, very blessed that Terry cooked me roast beef and Yorkshire puddings in the works yesterday, and I just had to sit on the sofa and do nothing. So I was very, very appreciative of that yesterday, and it was delicious.
Oh, right. Well, describe your Sunday lunch to us then.
Oh, well, roast beef, medium rare, roast potatoes, Yorkshire puddings, there's red pepper, there is roasted garlic, roasted cabbage, and gravy. And if I've forgotten anything and you're watching, Terry, I apologise. I was too busy eating it all. But yes, absolutely lovely. Oh, and parsnips, yes.
And what did you have for pud?
A glass of Prosecco when I got home. I'm not really a pudding girl, to be honest with you. I haven't got a sweet tooth. I'm much more savoury. I'm not like you. If I have a box of chocolate, it took me 3 months to finish my chocolate Santa. So yeah, a lot of people can just eat chocolate, but I just can't. Or puddings.
Yes, it's amazing, isn't it? Why I've got a sweet tooth, I have no idea.
Did you have a roast yesterday?
Sorry?
Did you have a roast yesterday?
Yes, no, well, yes, I did. I had roast chicken, and I actually came to the Black Horse for my lunch on a Sunday. I normally do on a Sunday because, well, I'm not a very good cook, as you know, and I had you buy me a lamb chop, which I made for my Saturday meal. Thinking, right, I'll really have a nice meal on Saturday because I didn't go out on Saturday at all. I got doing something, and suddenly I smelled. Oh my God! I've got the lamb chop going, and I went. It was only just edible, but not as delicious as I had hoped it to be. And I'd gone to the trouble of putting herbs and spices and looking at a recipe and so on and so forth, and I buggered it.
You absolutely did, because I was the one that had to scrape it into the bin.
Yes, yeah,
I did see.
Well, I will.
We'll have to do it again.
Tell you that I tried to scrape everything into the bin so you wouldn't know how much I'd burned.
Nothing passes by me, but yes, I thought, oh dear. The lamb chop didn't quite, what was it, or lamb or pork one, I can't remember, but yes, I did see the remains. Definitely Silence of the Lambs.
Mind you, I mean, have you found, because I mean, you're just a young sprout, have you found that some sort of thing that I would have enjoyed when I was much younger to the sort of stuff that you enjoy has changed dramatically? I mean, roast beef and Yorkshire pudding hasn't, but what else? I mean, you mentioned red peppers. It would never occur to me to have a red pepper with roast beef.
Not me, actually. That was my friend's doing. So I'm very much a traditionalist, and calling me a sprout while I'm wearing my green top today, I probably do look like a sprout. But yeah, I very much like roast dinners. I cook everything from scratch. I think the supermarkets are so commercialized, and the flavour, I've never microwave meals or the pre-packaged stuff, you just can't get the flavour, and you can only really get that when you cook with love. So, and that's losing. I actually discovered the other day watching, I think it was one of the breakfast shows, to do my roast potatoes in Marmite, and they were delicious, absolutely amazing. I would never have thought to have coated them in Marmite.
No, so, we describe Mirador as Marmite. Love it, hate it, but you never forget it.
Good one.
One of the things that I like about you shopping for meat for me, though, is because in Uckfield you've got a nice butcher, and you actually get the stuff fresh, don't you?
I do, but I actually went to Ringmer for the meat that I bought you. I was going to go to Uckfield, but it was closed. So the butchers in Ringmer, which is fantastic, I got beautiful meat from them. So
yeah, well, it's just literally about 100 yards, less than 100 yards from the Black Horse. There is a butcher of that ilk, Richards, the butcher. And I always, I'm slightly amused because most of the pubs and restaurants here, if they offer sausages, say sausages from Richards and Sons or Brothers or whatever they are, is just to make sure that that they're from this very good butcher. And occasionally, only very occasionally, if I have to top up from anything that you've bought me, I actually go to Richards, and he is a lovely, lovely man, and he'll more or less cut you whatever you want. And Richard Barton, one of the 2Bs, goes there, and is a regular customer, and he swears by the meat that he gets. So it's good to know that there still are individual shops. They're rapidly disappearing, but there are still shops left where you can go and you can get the stuff fresh.
Yeah, and locally sourced. And there's a good couple of really nice farm shops as well near Isfield. There's one on either side of the A26. I try both, and they're fabulous, and the vegetables are fabulous. And I keep trying to go and use locally sourced products rather than just pour all of my hard-earned money into Tesco's pockets. I'd rather we could give it to the locals. So that's my sort of mission at the moment. And I love now that we're selling eggs by the roadside. Yes, the eggs are back. I can buy freshly popped eggs.
Yeah, I must say that one of the things that my late wife and I enjoyed enormously is when we first came back from Canada, and probably before you were born, in 1973, I think it was. But the very first place we lived was in Tamworth, in the North, Midlands, and one of the places that you could zip down to, which is only a few miles away, was Ashby de la Zouch, which the Americans who were posted there had a little song, Ashby de la Zouch by the sea, because it was as far from the sea as you could possibly get. But as you went down into the town, there was an old-fashioned poulterer's, with rabbits hanging in the window and so on. Well,
just my rabbits are running around. Don't tell my rabbits that.
Okay. Well, I mean, they were older rabbits. They used to have eggs in a basket, and there was a sign on it which said, eggs from the hens of the Reverend so and so, as if they were blessed by God,
Oh, but what a beautiful sign, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, only in England, could you get a sign like that?
Love that. That's wonderful.
My wife was fascinated. She would never have seen anything like that in Canada.
Oh, wonderful.
Tell me, you rode at university, didn't you?
Not at university. It was when I was at school in Durham for the short time I was there. So I did some rowing on the Tyne there. I'm really loving rowing in New Haven. Had a beautiful row last Saturday morning. So yeah, it's great to just be out in the fresh air, really.
Were you a single sculler?
No, it's a gig. It's a gig boat. I'm trying to get the terminology, but yeah, it's gig rowing. So there's 6 of us in total, one being the cox.
Right, yeah. Now I rowed briefly, and I say briefly because as a student I had to get up to it, but I rowed briefly with an 8 in Canada, and I was very lucky because they were the 8 that had just won the Olympics, and of course 1 or 2 had graduated. But when I was 18, I was only 160 pounds dripping wet, and to be a successful rower, you needed to be at least 200 pounds. Is weight? I hadn't realised that weight makes a difference in a racing boat. So there I was, too light. had to get fat. And now that I'm fat, I need to get slim. Life is not fair.
It's not, is it? Yeah. See, also, when I was rowing on Saturday, I have to follow the person in front of me on my side. And I was thinking, why can't I get this right today? And then I realised that her stature was very different to mine. So she was very petite, short legs, short arms. Whereas I am tall with long levers, I'm called, long arms, long legs. So when I pull back, my width that I'm pulling back is a much greater area than hers. I kept missing the water. And then I realised I had to row with shorter arms, as like a dinosaur, like a T-Rex.
Yeah. Oh yes,
And
you
I,
only got to get one person out of kilter.
yeah, and I realised actually, if you're matched with someone of similar stature, arms and legs and length, then your stretch is going to be the same. So I had to really sort of accommodate
Yes.
my style.
Does a gig have sliding seats?
No.
Ah,
I think
yeah.
I don't, do other ones? I only know the sliding one in the gym.
A racing 8 has sliding seats.
Yeah, we have 6 seats.
Yeah, the way that they trained us was on barges, which didn't move at all. I mean, you just rode these huge barges.
Wow.
But it built up your muscles, of course.
Sounds like a Viking.
It still didn't want me to wake up earlier than my body said I should. So I stuck with rugby. So what's ahead? What have you got in your mind for the week? I know you said that it's a clear week ahead. I know you've got some elderly people, including me, to visit. But have you got other things in mind that are interesting?
Well, at the moment, my partner and I, he's planned a cabana for my garden throughout the winter. And so he'll be coming over later. So I'm helping him build a cabana in the garden. So I'm sort of learning how to mix cement and do all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I'll be mostly constructing a cabana this week around my visits to people. So
gosh, no, that is interesting.
Yeah, he's a builder and a carpenter by trade. Very talented guy in terms of how he's planned this, because he's very talented. So I'm learning a lot about construction. So, yes.
Would you like to take photographs of that? Send them over.
I am taking some. Yeah.
I'll put them into a little video. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing step by step. So I'm looking out the window at the moment, and all I can see is 2 bunny rabbits bombing around. They've been helping dig the holes. So, but yeah, so shortly I'll be off to Crowborough, and then I pick my friend up, see Aisa. So, and the week for me, I never really plan my week. Something always happens. So, see what exciting things happen this week.
Yeah, well, that's when you meet Philip on Wednesday, to be able to with me you guess, with him you could start to say, yes, this is what I've actually done.
Yeah. I was supposed to be doing aerial yoga, but I was getting a tripod lamp out of my loft on Friday, and I didn't realise the metal pole wasn't attached, and it dropped and it landed right on my foot, and I had socks on. So my foot is very black.
Oh dear.
And also a bit blue, because I did paint my spare room floor last week as well. I painted it the blue that you can see on the strip line underneath you on your live link here. So I've got blue splodges on various places on my body. So I'll continue to decorate my spare bedroom as well. So I've got probably quite creative in construction things in and amongst visiting my clients this week. So
you're very creative, yeah.
Learning and loving every day.
Oh, that's for sure. I mean, some of the things that is my flat. It was just a mess, and now at least there is some order in it. Although it was in such a mess, it's going to take you months to really sort it out. But yes, you're a very creative lady, and it's in some ways for somebody such as myself who is a fumble thumb. I mean, yesterday I came to pay for my meal at lunchtime, and the bloody card wouldn't work. And then suddenly, Andrea, the lady behind the bar, said, "Take your thumb off that." And I got my thumb pressed on the machine that you pay and put your card in.
Oh.
It's preventing the thing to work properly. I mean, that's me with things. But can I
I
just
did that.
go
I was
back
trying to get through the underground. I was trying to get through on the tube in London using my Tesco card because it's the same colour as my nationwide one. So I know that feeling.
Yeah, it just, I mean, the joy of this Monday morning is that we can flit around. Is you speak of the underground? Is when I was on the very first time I was on the Moscow metro, I looked at the words which are in Cyrillic, which is not at all like English, of course, and there was C, T, W, and then what everybody would know as pi. And I struggled with this, and I struggled with it and struggled with it, and the carriage pulled to a halt, and the doors opened, and I suddenly realised what it meant to stop.
Wonderful.
But I was also going to say with rabbits, one of the happiest summers that I ever spent was with the family of a girlfriend in France. And this would be 1961, I think. And they were very, very hospitable. Her mother bought a live rabbit from the market, which she was going to kill and serve, and I wouldn't let her. So this mad Englishman is say, no, you can't, keep it in the garden.
Well, I woke up this morning at 5 with both of mine under my bed, making a racket.
What colour are they?
One's chocolate and one's honey. And they're just adorable. They're bigger than the cats now. They're huge, but they're so naughty. But they're both under my bed. And I was like, it's normally the cats. I was like, right, get out. It's 5 a.m. Go and play somewhere else.
How do they get along with the cats?
Oh, they completely ignore the cats. So they all get along together. And you see them playing in the garden. But if one of them gets a bit too frisky, Teddy, my dog, sees the cat off. So the dog protects the rabbits. So it's a wonderful dynamic going on.
Yes.
So I don't need anything else. I just look out the window.
How many animals have you got altogether?
8 cats, 2 rabbits, 11.
Wow.
I did have a blind cat.
Animals.
Yeah, my lodger's gone with her cat now. So, but yes, but you wouldn't know it. That is the thing. People think that's really mad, but you would not know it because they're all in different places. So the rabbits are out in the garden at the moment. The dog's on the bed, and all the cats are probably dispersed in the neighbours' kitchens and lounges because you know what cats are like.
When I was in Northern Ireland, we lived in the countryside. In fact, we lived on a farm, a 150-acre farm. I wasn't a farmer, but we'd got a house, a fair-sized bungalow, actually, in the middle of this farm. And one way or another, we accrued 3 dogs and 7 cats. And when I got home, I would actually take, the dogs into the field and take them for a walk. And all the cats would come too. And going through barley fields is, some of the neighbors said it was absolutely hilarious. They would wait for my car to come home because seeing me walk through the field with all these tails stuck up, and that's all they could see with the tails. They dubbed me Uncle Moses.
That's fantastic. I have a communal garden off the back of my garden. So I go down with Teddy, and then all of the cats appear, and they're all playing in this garden. So, and also I used to walk in the field, which has now got houses on. And yeah, I used to have the same thing. The cats would just follow through. And she got lost. You hear this, and we're like, hello here. And it's fantastic, isn't it?
It is. Oh, yes. Yes, I haven't had animals for myself for some time because being alone, I can't look after them, but they are a joy. They can be an absolute joy.
And an absolute pest.
And my daughter is just preparing to lose her dog, and she's still in Belfast, and she's going to lose him after 14 years. So it's going to be a real wrench. She thinks she might have him for another year, but and she said she'd found a little piece of video the other day of him romping in the snow when he was 2 years of age.
It's so hard. They're part of the family, aren't they? I mean, Teddy's like, he's part of my heart, really, and
I mean, people who aren't animal lovers probably watching us at the moment, chatting about them and getting such pleasure out of it, won't understand. And I feel sorry for people who don't have the pleasure at some stage in their lives of having an animal, because it is unconditional. There are no conditions attached to the affection and love that they give you, and that's absolutely wonderful. Only you can get that from human beings.
And that's why I have them, because they're always happy to see you. They always make you laugh, and there's never a dull moment. But I think it teaches you a lot about care and, like you said, the unconditional love that you get.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So you're not quite sure, apart from looking after me and one other this week. Do you notice somebody said to me the other day, you've got food all over your lips? In fact, it does stain, and that is a result of Parkinson's. Now, I only mention that because on Friday, Dr. Mark Mabey, is Mark, who comes on twice a week now, on a Wednesday for a chat, but then he likes to chat to Melissa. But I hadn't been aware he'd had prostate cancer. So we were talking about how the effects and the things that you have to get used to. And that an awful lot of people don't understand how you have to adapt your life to the illnesses that you've got, and that some of the things that are very difficult to do, that ordinary people would have no problems with. I mean, for instance, when I'm seated here in front of the camera, I've got a chair that's got an arm. If I drop anything, getting it is an absolute trauma. Whereas somebody else would go, and up it would come. And these are sort of some of the things that you don't realize yourself. And people will look at you and you think, what the hell are they looking at? And it's just something that is cropped up because you've got something that they haven't, and you hope like hell that they don't get. But Jeremy Paxman and a chap called Sulla Jones, both ex-BBC, have started a little podcast. And I've forgotten just offhand what they call it, but I'll remember, and I'll pass it on in the next day or two, about Parkinson's and what it does to you and what you can do to offset it and so on and so forth. But they do it in a very amusing way because they're both broadcasters. I actually, I think you saw it. I wrote something about having to put two legs in one trouser leg and so on and so forth. But it is being amusing about it. Makes it people much more aware. There is much greater awareness, and I think that if they, through their podcasts, and we through here can help make people aware of those people with disabilities, is we don't ask for sympathy, we don't ask for special treatment. We do ask for understanding, and not for you to laugh and sneer at us. Because I look as if I'm staggering. I,
I
I think it's funny, but not everybody does.
I don't think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, for me now working, I call seniors or older people, older people. I don't call them elderly, you're just older people. Um, the things that I come across in people's homes, like, for example, one of my clients, their family buys her the milk, the 4 pints of milk. And she can't even lift the milk up, it's way too heavy. So she started decanting it into smaller jugs. So I've asked the family, can you just buy, 1 pint of milk rather than 4 pints because it's too heavy for her. And things like taking caps off milk bottles and that little tricky white circle, I have to use my teeth for that. That's really tricky, particularly if you've got arthritis or Parkinson's. Opening tins is very difficult.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And having things in certain locations, like when I go to a client's house, I'll give a very good example. One client, there was always a wooden spoon on the surface. And one day I just said, because I never move anything without asking. And I said to this client, I said, why is the wooden spoon always out? And he said to me, he said, because when I put the washing in the washing machine, I can't quite get down to poke it in. So I use the wooden spoon to poke the washing in. So that was one thing. And then he said he always has an umbrella by the front door because the delivery people won't bring his food in. So he has to use the umbrella to hook the food in. So whenever I see something, I need to know why it's there. It's always there for a purpose. Yeah. So, and if we move that away or take it away, that suddenly completely creates a problem for that person.
Yes, actually, a quite serious thing is one of the. Luckily, I don't have too many debts left, but one finance company wanted to get some information, and they obviously got some new girl. And it was obviously a girl. I mean, you could tell from her the way she spoke and wrote, and they didn't realise, they had no idea what Parkinson's was about, and so they became intrusive in their questioning, and that can be quite upsetting. Is you don't like people poking too deeply, particularly those people you don't know. Those people you do know, you don't mind because you know that they'll understand. People in the street you don't care, but people who should be responsible and they're not. They have no idea about illness, and we're now talking about training various people, and I think that my knowledge of corporate affairs is that the very first thing in the budget to go is training, and yet it should be the very first, because that's how your customers and the general public see you, and a company's reputation can depend upon that. But is understanding that most of us have got something wrong with us somewhere is just, as you say, young people are only interested in themselves, and perhaps we should be making them far more interested in the sort of things that are uncomfortable in life, because there are far more things that are uncomfortable than are comfortable.
Yeah, there are, and I'm blessed now that I have knowledge of the aging process and what that brings, the difficulties you can encounter. And I had the privilege of doing end-of-life care for one gentleman who passed away in January. So to be actually part of that end-of-life process, that is actually a privilege to me, to care for somebody who's going through the process of dying in front of me. And I would not know about that process at all if I did not work with such lovely people that, they invite me into their homes to participate in this process. And sometimes people look at you and say, oh, you're a carer, all you do is, white bottoms and things like that. And it's like, no, it's nothing like that at all. You're privileged to be with someone at that state in their life, which is a very vulnerable place.
Well, Susie, you've been trained as a carer, and you are very, very aware And I saw your little ad that you've got a little bit of time available. And anybody who's watching, I can tell you that if you get this lady, you are privileged indeed, because she is bloody good.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
you really know your craft and your skill and so on and so forth, and you're sensitive to it, and you're excellent to have around. You make me feel good whenever you're in my place anyway. So take a look, everybody who may want a carer. This is the one to get.
Oh gosh. I don't know if you spotted these. Did you spot these? The hearts.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
You can't see them from there, but yeah, looking at you with love this morning. Looking at everybody with love.
Well, the one thing she didn't know is when she crossed my doorstep is that she would almost immediately be hijacked into becoming a broadcaster, and a bloody good one she is too. So is a very talented lady. Susie, thank you for being with us again this morning, and you'll be with Philip on Wednesday. And we'll look forward to having you then.
And me too. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you on Wednesday.
Okay, look forward to it.
Okay, bye. Bye. Bye.
Well, there we are. And a lovely morning chat about some things that might interest you and some things that might not interest you. Now, we will... I'm going to... before we go to Harry... let's see, it's 9:27. We go to Harry at 8, along with Philip, hopefully. I'm going to actually, as I have been doing, is play episode 2 of our renowned, I'm not going to say award-winning because we never did put it up for any awards, but renowned documentary, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. So let me see if I can... I quite often fumble around this, but I think that here we go. The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, episode 2. Lovely scene, isn't it? Beautiful green grass, blackberry bushes surrounding the lawn. Peaceful.
The chaps, gliding a bowling ball across the cropped turf. Couldn't be more pleasant. But this bowling green was originally the tilting ground for the castle. A bit like the local football club, Norman knights turned up regularly to practice cutting off ears, piercing armour with pike or sword. Or even more dramatically, they charged at one another with pointed lances, determined to knock an opponent to the ground, ready to perform the coup de grace, that last fatal plunge of the sword in the unguarded bit of flesh, the throat.
Makes me feel quite faint. But the Knights of 1100 had to be honed to military perfection.
Not only was there the odd disgruntled Saxon around, but even his own side could give the king a rough time. And indeed they did. But before we go to another bloody incident on the Lewes High Street, let's stay with the tilting ground for a moment. In the 1700s, the soldiers, who had wielded their swords with such skill, discovered guns and started shooting one another. That more or less ended the fun of charging at one another with horses. And so this bit of real estate was up for grabs, and the local Crown bowlers seized the opportunity in 1751 and turned tilting into bowling. But this is Lewes, remember. Nothing is ever what it seems. The horses had ploughed up the ground a bit, so the surface wasn't even. You can see the bumps and ridges across the green. So the type of bowls played on this green was different to any played through the British Isles. And 500 years later, it still is.
It goes way back to medieval times, but so far as we're concerned here, we've been playing here since 1753, and there is some evidence to suggest that in the mid-1600s there was bowls played here. And we're reputed to be the oldest society, sporting society in the world. Very unique, and we're unique in many respects. I mean, firstly, the woods are unique in that most of them over 100 years old. They're lignum vitae, which is very, very hard wood, and that's the reason, of course, they've survived as long as they have. The jack is biased, which is very unusual, and the green is undulating, very undulating. There's not another green anywhere in this country so far as we know, and it makes for a very fascinating but unique game, one that we can't play any other club because there aren't any that play like this. We have a membership of 50 only or 55 now, because that's all the woods we have. They're handed down from person to person. We have a championship game in the summer because we have a competition throughout the year, which is within the club. And I think the winner of that is not only our own champion, but we can consider he's world champion. As long as we can retain the green, and I think we can retain the green, as long as we can do that, there's no reason why this society shouldn't continue ad infinitum almost. It's a great Lewes establishment.
So bowling in Lewes is completely unique. And very difficult. But back to blood and guts. In the last episode, I spoke of a battle between the king and some of his barons. The king, Henry III, held the castle. Now, as you can see, the castle pokes up into the sky quite a bit. The Motter is a man-made hill. And as you can see, a few hours of overtime were put in to build this pile of dirt. From the top, you can see in every direction for miles. Almost impossible to creep up without being noticed. And there was a moat to cross as well. But it's called Castle Ditch Lane, the name reflecting its purpose all those years ago. The king, rather unsportingly, had more men on his side than the barons. But it seems he fell asleep at the switch, and on that meadow over there, Simon de Montfort drew up his troops and joined battle. Fighting was fierce. After all, they'd all been on their own tilting greens, preparing for such a showdown as this. The battle was short and sharp, and the barons put the royal troops to flight. And they showed no mercy. The priory had been used as a staging post by the king's men, and they now took refuge there. It's little wonder that tilting grounds became bowling greens, because despite all that training, the king's men panicked. Screams of terror from both monks and soldiers echoed around the priory. As burning arrows thudded into thatched roofs, setting the priory buildings afire, fighting spilled over to here, our beloved but bloody High Street. Soldiers were either massacred or crushed to death as they tried to get across the bridge over the River Ouse. For the king, it was a complete disaster.
De Montfort, he split his armies up on the hills behind us in the chalk downs. He split his army into three forward not flanks, but bunches of men, groups. And they would have been around 1,500 people in them. So a lot of people. So he had 1,500 people. Then he kept men back for himself. So his left flank went off to Barkham and met Prince Edward, and they went off to Barkham. Prince Edward, being a hothead and chasing them all the way up to Barkham, away from the town, was one of the reasons the king's men lost. Because and they were mounted knights. And then the other two sets came into the town and were met by the king's army and Richard of Alameyn's army on sort of the hills around us, really, because where we are now would have been outside the town.
And it was a pretty bloody war.
It was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. It's hard to imagine. Lewes is a little place, and on the hills around Lewes, where most of the fighting was, there were tens of thousands of people trying to kill each other. And it was hand-to-hand close combat. And you didn't often die of wounds on the battlefield immediately. You were usually whacked with a broadsword and you would die of internal bleeding, or you would, have limbs severed and die slow death, or you would die death from infection, etc.
So there you go. Not quite one man, one vote, but some slight recognition that the divine right of kings isn't exactly what the Almighty had in mind.
A spark of democracy was ignited, and it happened in Lewes.
As usual, this is thirsty work, and I need to take a break. In fact, have a tipple, or perhaps go to the loos. Don't leave me, there's more blood and gore to come. Oh, Lewes, what a place!
Lewes increased in importance as the Norman occupation took hold. Not that it wasn't important before that. In Saxon times, the town had 2 mints.
And in case my pronunciation confuses you,
Those are places where coyens were made, not a sweet that is eaten to try to disguise what you've been drinking. The now much larger cathedral town of Chichester only had 1 mint, which not only indicated the importance of Lewes, but started a sort of battle of popularity between the two places. The struggle for the rights to hold assizes, for example, created a tug of war that saw Chichester hold trials for a while, only for Lewes to get them back. Lewes won. The Crown Court and Lewes Assizes are still located in the modern town, and they ain't going nowhere. Mighty though the Norman castle was, it was dwarfed by the Cluniac Priory, just across this small valley. William de Warenne, who actually fought at the Battle of Hastings, was granted Lewes, along with lots of other goodies, as the spoils of war. His wife Gundrada, a religious lady, asked for and got a sponsorship to establish the priory, just 20 years after England was conquered. Henry VIII's chief vandal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled it down in 1547, doing the bidding of the king who had fallen out with Rome over his love life. But the workmen of the 11th century were first-class masons, and some of these buildings have lasted to this day. Look at that, almost 1,000 years old. It wasn't just Henry and Thomas who were vandals. The good burghers of Lewes did their part over successive centuries, digging up the grounds and using the stones to build their garden sheds. By the time it was destroyed, the priory dominated the Lewes skyline. Its great church was immense, and the whole complex had its own hospital, dormitories, dining hall, and a wharf. Boats sailed up to the priory to carry and fetch goods. How times change. This river, the Winterbourne, carried ships and barges up to the docks in the priory. Nowadays, it would barely carry a paper boat. The priory was vitally important to the local economy, bringing in goods and attracting important visitors.
The ship would have actually come very near to the edge of where the tennis courts are. That's where, because you've got the Cockshute river or stream which fed into the Ouse, and then yes, there would have been a wharf here from which they unloaded all the stones that they used to build the priory. Because what we see now is a lot of the infill. It's like the cavity walling of the priory. The outside, the dress stone, which is now used in places like Southover Grange, came from Carr on the Isle of Wight or from Caen, so it all had to be imported. It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It would have dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open and free access. And it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history, they can sit in our herb garden and contemplate. And we've just started a new kitchen garden which will grow vegetables. And again, this is for the community to get involved in. So it's very much based in the community of Lewes.
But there's nothing like a bit of competition to stir the blood of a true Lewesian. And sometime in the 15th century, a big fight is recorded between the bailiffs of the town and the prior's men in a local tavern. One of the 63 pubs that once existed in the town, no doubt. The town was walled in 1275, and a fat lot of good it did. When de Montfort's troops attacked, they swept into the town with no trouble. That then caused the town's nobility to strengthen them. They remained intact from then for some centuries, when they came down to the hammers of developers as the town grew. Entry to the town was by 3 gates, north, south and west, each now remembered through the name and a few remaining stones where the wall had been. The walls may have gone, and most of the priory. But many buildings in Lewes have stood the test of time and the vandalism of kings. This church was originally a hospice attached to the priory, and this was an early hospital from the same period. And Cromwell wasn't daft enough to pull down a Tudor manor which Henry had given as part of a divorce settlement. He kept Anne of Cleves House for himself. Within the town walls, this building has more than stood the test of time. St Michael's was the original castle church, built about 1240. It's the parish church of the town, and holds both church services and musical concerts today. There is a helmet and depiction of Sir Patrick Hamilton on one of the walls. Lewes is close to the coast and open to attack from French marauders, who regularly attacked the coast. On one occasion in the 16th century, ships sailed up the Ouse far enough for them to be spotted from inside the town. This noble knight depicted here was renowned for his courage in seeing them off. Later, revolutionary Tom Paine was married here before decamping to the Americas. And its spiral tower is one of the few surviving in the UK.
Before we disappear into the folds of one of Lewis's hostelries,
There's one more legacy from Henry's break with Rome. His successor, Queen Mary, wanted to restore the Roman Church to England, and she was very vicious towards dissenters. 17 people who refused to give up their beliefs or had read the Bible in English were seized and thrown into a dungeon in Lewes. In November 1545, they were marched up these stairs out to a stake and put in tar barrels. Burning to death in that way was a very horrible way to die. One more chapter in the bloody Lewes High Street saga. This act of savagery has not been lost in the mists of time, however. The 17 martyrs, as they're known, are remembered on November the 5th in the biggest bonfire ceremonies of any Guy Fawkes night in the world. 7 bonfire societies stage a joint procession through the town, torches blazing, effigies of Guy Fawkes and of so-called enemies of bonfire, those who have behaved badly in the year, pulled on carriages stuffed with fireworks. It's a colourful and impressive procession, but with an underlying commemoration of the 17 dead. The parade stops at the town's war memorial for the laying of wreaths to the fallen. Prayers are said. Banners extolling the names of the martyrs are held high. And rousers, or better known to us as bangers, are freely thrown around as the people march. It's a colourful parade.
and I feel underdressed, with just one of my hats to show off. But bonfire, as it's known locally, is not the only memory of Bloody Lewes.
It suffered a far worse fate from a hidden foe. The Black Death.
On Bloody Red to Deadly Black. Next episode, how rats destroyed a major port and brought more historical carnage to Lewes. Until then, a bloody goodbye. Poor old Lewes. I need a drink. Well, a look back in the past to Lewes. As I said, you can barely walk the streets of this town without treading on a bit of history. And a bit of history it is. But we also have to concentrate on the present. It's now 10 to 10. Time for us to go to France, to Normandy, which we will do in a minute or two, hopefully, as long as the technology doesn't let us down. It's behaved admirably this morning. But it is let's just see if we can take a look outside. Yes, there it is. Outside the Black Horse Inn, gazing at a historic site is not terribly inspiring. It's a piece of parkland, actually, a piece of green, and thank God for greenery. But it also is it's also the site of a windmill, an old windmill in which one of the king's men sought refuge in fleeing from the battlefield in the Battle of Lewes after breaking ranks, chasing de Montfort's troops, Simon de Montfort's troops, and allowing the Baron's men to surge through and attack from behind, and that was it. In those days, the moment you broke the line, you opened up the field to the enemy. Anyway, I think that, well, we're just waiting for to join Harry and oops. And Philip. There's enough going on in the world for us to look quickly at the news headlines again, because there's some things of concern, I think, that everybody should be aware of. I just have to calm my finger on the mouse. There's pictures of two of the suspects accused of killing 137 people in an attack on a concert near Moscow make the front page of The Guardian. The paper says Russia's investigative committee released a video yesterday showing the men being blindfolded into its headquarters. The Daily Mail says footage was also circulated of the suspects being tortured by what it calls their sadistic captors. According to the Daily Telegraph, one appears to have been hooked up to electric wires. The Sun is among those to report that Britain will officially blame China for a cyber attack in 2021. The hackers targeted the Electoral Commission, accessing the personal details of 40 million people in the UK. There are also fears for the NHS because the government sources have told the Sun that the health service uses the same software as that was accessed. According to the Times, the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Dowden, will tell MPs that as a result of the findings, the UK will look at sanctioning Chinese officials implicated in human rights abuses in Hong Kong and Xinjiang. China also makes the front pages of the Daily Telegraph because Whitehall sources believe Beijing, Russia, and Iran are fueling disinformation about Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Senior government figures fear the countries are behind the spread of wild conspiracy theories about her health. Part of the modus operandi of hostile states is to destabilize things, the government source is quoted as saying. The Daily Express reports that King Charles III will rally the nation with a powerful Easter message this week. The paper says he will seek to provide reassurance to people after Catherine publicly announced she was undergoing chemotherapy for cancer on Friday. The king, who also has cancer, is, according to the Daily Mail, so optimistic about his own treatment, he's expressed a hope to attend Royal Ascot this summer. They're a racing family. The Daily Mirror leads on what it calls the battle for the boozer, with some pubs now closing at 8 o'clock due to costs and lack of customers. Greg Kirk, the landlord of the Hawk in East London, says he does not open at all on Mondays and Tuesdays. The Campaign for Real Ale has described the revelations in the Mirror as a harsh wake-up call for the government. Ministers say measures to support hospitality were recently extended, including a 75% discount on business rates. And the Times reports, what is the Times report? Times reports on soaring 20s. That is the record number of people in Britain aged under 30 earning more than £1 million a year. Figures from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs show the number of people in that category is 830, up from 650 before the pandemic. The accountancy firm that obtained the data said the rise in young millionaires has been driven by bigger deals for sport, music, and media stars. Well, there we are. That's the news. I haven't had any response from either of our two correspondents. I think what I might well do is well, it's interesting to see the traffic pattern, isn't it, outside the pub. I heard a bump. I thought I might be joined in the pub on my own at the moment. And it's rather pleasant being in a pub, surrounded by all sorts of booze. I haven't really key to it. But there we are. I'm a trustworthy soul. And anyway, drinking before noon is not in my vocabulary anymore. I always have a glass of cider at the moment that the pub opens, and then go about my business for the rest of the day. But for the moment, I suppose I really should find out whether, in fact, it may be the two gentlemen concerned have started an independent, or about to start an independent program. So I'm going to leave you for 10 minutes so that we can find out what's going on. But it's been an enjoyable couple of hours since 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I hope that you've enjoyed it with me. And here is a new view, if you like, of the scene outside the Black Horse. And I'll say for the moment, toodle pip, and I'll be back very shortly, either as an observer or a participant, who knows. Okay, toodle pip.